I am honored to join with the university community, parents, and friends here assembled in welcoming a most distinguished guest. Will the University Provost, Cornelius Kerwin, please come forward for the conferring of the honorary degree.
In granting honorary degrees, the university recognizes distinguished individuals whose life work represents the values, the knowledge, the accomplishments that are very embodied in the mission of this institution. Today we honor a great statesman whose efforts to pursue a durable peace in the Middle East are recognized literally throughout the world. President Ladner, it is my pleasure to present the Honorable Shimon Peres to receive the degree Doctor of International Affairs in honoris causa. Will the University Marshal please escort the honoree to the podium?
Acting Dean Wachtel, please join in the presentation of this degree.
Shimon Peres, statesman, diplomat, man of peace. You have shaped the history of Israel, the future of the Middle East, and the direction of international affairs through your diplomatic skills and personal commitment to establishing peace. Your leadership ability was recognized early in your life by the founder of Israel, David Ben-Gurion, who had appointed you Deputy General of the Ministry of Defense, though you were still in your 20s. In addition to your years of service in the Knesset, you have held every major cabinet position in the Israeli government. You have been Minister of Defense, of Foreign Affairs, of Finance, and of course, Prime Minister. As Finance Minister, you brought inflation under control. As Defense Minister, you championed the principle of a secure peace. And as Prime Minister, you advanced the ideal of a permanent peace in the face of conflict and instability throughout the Middle East. You worked tirelessly to improve Israel's relations with Egypt in the 1980s and to achieve the Israel-Jordan peace agreement in 1994. You were a major architect of the historic peace agreement between Israel and the Palestine Liberation Organization in 1993. For that achievement, you, Yitzhak Rabin, and Yasser Arafat were awarded the Nobel Prize for Peace in 1994, confirming that your long struggle was not in vain and that the defining ingredients for peace in the Middle East are not just dreams, but courageous acts by great-hearted leaders. In 1996, you created the Peres Institute for Peace to provide a framework for cooperation and peace initiatives among the peoples of the Middle East. Mirroring your own stature, the Institute has already become a touchstone for facilitating peace in the daily lives of people of goodwill. Shimon Peres, you have built a great legacy, not only for Israel, but also for future generations of the world. We honor your humane vision, your sense of history, and your personal courage with this degree.
Shimon Peres, by authority of the Congress of the United States, vested in the Board of Trustees of American University and by the Board and me, I am proud to confer upon you the degree of Doctor of International Affairs honoris causa and invest you with the hood appropriate thereto. Congratulations.
Mr. President, faculty, dear students and parents, first of all, I want to thank from the depth of my heart for the honor you have bestowed, I think not so much upon me, but very much upon my country that is now celebrating her birthday, her anniversary of 50 years. And I believe it's an expression of friendship, of understanding and support, which we appreciate deeply and moving. Before I shall make my remarks, let me just make one remark. Let me congratulate American University on your creation of a Center for Israeli Studies. It is a timely and imaginative initiative in exploring Israel's many contributions to human dignity and progress in our country's 50 years of existence. You will help to bring together Israeli and American scholars, writers, artists, scientists to share their knowledge and face the challenges of the new global era. This is a commendable idea and worthy of the widest support. May I promise you, Mr. President, that we shall guarantee a supply of problems and subjects for this center, so you will never be unemployed. Young ladies and young men, I look upon you, and let me tell you that in my judgment, you are graduating in an entirely new world, in an entirely new era, so different from the one that your parents or myself did when we were young or students. I do not believe, I hope that the professors of history will forgive me, that you are going to continue the traditional history. I think you are entering to divorce the traditional history to engage in an entirely new experience in human annals. When one looks at history, it is basically a story of bloodshed. The traditional history was written with red letters, and maybe there were reasons for it. We have had to fight to defend our land, to provide existence for our people, but it is basically a sad history. There is not much joy or pride in it. And I think that many of the things that you have learned, you will have to learn to forget. But you cannot forget to learn again. Times are changing so often and so deeply that more than you have to develop your vocations, you have to develop your character, your talents, your potential. And believe me, there is much more in each of you than you think. You have to learn to remember, to work together, to develop a new charisma, to be ready for the acceptance of fresh ideas and fresh relationships. When I graduated from the university, or when Israel became a fact of life, it was already an entirely different world. We were after the victory of the Second World War. Still the world was full with pains and wounds of the German, of Hitler. But still there were some empires, the British, the French, the mighty Soviet Union, and always a taste or a warning for another bloody confrontation worldwide. And over the 50 years, all of a sudden, so many changes, uninvitedly, unexpectedly, arrived in our midst that we can hardly recognize the world we live in. Maybe the greatest event that happened was the collapse of the Soviet Union. In my own library, I have quite a collection of books about communism and Soviet Union. I thought this is very good literature on political affairs. Now, reorganizing my library, I threw away all the books. I thought that none of them forecast what is going to happen in the Soviet Union. Even they didn't know exactly what was going on in the Kremlin. They were too brilliant to understand the realities of Moscow. And then the Soviet Union collapsed, and we were asking ourselves, why? It was not because of a military invasion, nor because of international interferences, nor because there was a revolution. From domestic sources, as Gorbachev said in his memoirs, only the communists could have brought down communism. Why did they do it? Because they discovered more and more that Russia does not fit anymore in a new age. No more could their leaders blind their people with an iron curtain. The silver curtain of television overpowered all those attempts not to let the truth flow as it should. And then they build, and you know, if I can say one thing in favor of television is, television made dictatorship impossible. It also made democracy intolerable. But better to suffer from the television critics than to suffer from the whims of dictators. And the Soviet Union, with such a might, a large army, a heavy industry, a strong government, a disciplined organization, how come they fall down? And when you think a little bit about it, you see that this is not a change concerning the Soviet Union alone. It's a major change in human annals. And if I have to define this change, I would say it in very few sentences. If until now the sources of wealth and strength were basically territorial and material, and you have had to defend them by armies and wars, today the basic sources of wealth and strength and prosperity are intellectual, scientific, technological, a matter of education and information. And all of a sudden, we were thrown out from a world of borders to a world of horizons. There is no sense to defend your border, because if you want to have something which is national, it will not be a national economy, it will be a national poverty. Whoever wants to be prosperous must become global, must compete, must invent, must learn, must teach. And borders you can reach. Horizons are limitless. Every time you come near it, you discover another one. As an Israeli, I compare my own country with some other countries. You know, when I compare Israel, for example, with Japan, Japan, all told, is 15 times the size of Israel. Like us, they are not an oily country, a holy country. Like us, they don't have gold or silver. The only thing the Japanese really have are Japanese. And look what you can do with people to make your country the second largest economic power in our time. On the other hand, when I compared Israel with the Soviet Union is 1,000 times the size of Israel. We are 24,000 square kilometers. They are 24 million square kilometers. Not only do they have a vast land, they have also plenty of water. The Soviet Union has 3 million lakes. Israel has 2 lakes, 1 dead. The Soviet Union has 100,000 rivers, 12 among them the largest in the world, the Don, the Dnieper, the Volga. Israel has a single river, the Jordan River, which is richer in history than in water. It is not a river for irrigation, but for public relations. And one can say Russia has everything, all possible minerals, natural resources. And furthermore, the Russian people are a highly intelligent people. We can see from the immigration that came into Israel from Russia the great contradiction between the intelligence of the people and the lack of intelligence of the system. Never did such an unintelligent system produce so many intelligent people. And yet, Israel exports food and Russia is short of food. When we have renewed our relations with the Russians, the first thing they bought from us, you wouldn't believe it, were cows. Why cows? It came out that the Israeli cow produces 3 times as much milk than a Russian cow. Now, believe me, it's the same cow with the same horns. The difference is really in the system. And the moral of the story is that you can get more milk from the right system than from the available cow. And that is true wherever you move around. I mean, what you can do today with science and technology and invention and novelties doesn't have any limit. And actually, why fight? Armies cannot conquer wisdom. Wars cannot bring new inventions. And the whole need to go fighting is questionable in the future. You will have to learn, to compete, to introduce new ideas, to be on the creative side of the story, not on the fighting line of our experience. I must add that the changes are not only positive, they are also negative. If in economy we went over from national economies to a global economy, in strategies we went over from enemies to dangers. Namely, the danger is not pinned down to a certain place. It floats in there because a missile doesn't pay respect to fortifications or fronts or frontiers. It can arrive at every place. So is terror, so are drugs, and so are many other dangers. Here again, we have to get used to the idea that we are no longer confined to our traditional national outlooks, but we have to work together in order to meet new potentials, in order to confront new dangers. It is very much because of it that our late Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin and myself went to Oslo. We wanted to bring an end to the traditional animosity. We felt very strongly that we do not have the moral right to dominate another people. Jewish life is 4,000 years strong. Never in our history did we dominate another people. And the ones who have dominated us disappeared from history. Why should we follow them? And I know that people are saying that you have to negotiate out of a position of strength. The problem is that when you are becoming strong, you lose your appetite to negotiate. And we felt we are strong, we have to go and return not only to our territorial homeland, but also to our ethical homeland. We cannot exist just as a people that has a land. We can exist only if we shall also adopt in practice our fundamental moral code and behave accordingly, not just to preach. I won't go into all the negotiations. I assure you, it's not easy to meet a former enemy. I am sure it wasn't easy for Arafat to meet us, and I'm telling you it was very difficult for us to meet him. The ones among you who saw the ceremony on the lawn of the White House when the late Prime Minister Rabin shook the hands of Arafat, his body language was revolting, as though he has to do something impossible. And after he did it, he turned to me and he said, he whispered in my ear, "Now it's your turn." You know, he went through an agony, I have to go through an agony. Furthermore, it is not just to negotiate with your enemy, but when you begin the negotiations, you have to negotiate with your own people. Because in war, when you win it, you are being applauded. In peace, you have to make concessions and compromises. And many people will ask you, why did you give back so much land? Why did you give back so much authority? Why are you in a hurry? Don't we have time? Don't we have the right to keep it on? And may I tell you again from my own experience that the future is always in a minority, as the past is always in a majority. When you want to create a new future, you have to swim against the stream. You have to take courageous decisions and not to tell stories. And you have to confront your own prejudices. You have to argue with your own people, because the future has one advantage. The future belongs to it. And I know that neither the Arabs nor us nor anybody else can live in a relationship that has dominance of one over another. We cannot live in a situation where war or terror can break out every moment. In Oslo, two things have happened. We tried to reach an agreement with the Palestinians that was partially done with a timetable, but not less than that. In Oslo, birth was given to a Palestinian entity. When we made peace with Egypt, Egypt existed already. When we made peace with Jordan, Jordan existed already. But when we made peace with the Palestinians, there was never in history a Palestinian state or a Palestinian people. That was the recognition of the legitimacy of the Palestinian people to enjoy freedom and respect and equality like everybody else. And today, as we go on with our negotiation, I am telling clearly to our people, it is to our interest to see a Palestinian state. In order for Israel to remain a Jewish state, we need a Palestinian neighbor. We are today 4.7 million Jewish people west of the Jordan River, 4 million Arab people. If we shall have one state, it will be neither Jewish nor Palestinian. It will become a binational state, or if you want, a binational tragedy, where neither of the two parties will ever agree to it. And you know, in politics, it's like in your own kitchen. You can break eggs into omelets. You cannot make from omelets eggs again. So when you handle eggs, be careful not to omelette a situation beyond repair. We feel that they are entitled to have their own life and their own respect and their own independence. Furthermore, not only are we interested to see them living in freedom and independence, but also to enjoy the same economic level as Israel does. We must be very worried not to create a situation whereby there will be one economy which is very rich, the Israeli one, and one economy which is very poor, the Arab one. If we want peace, you must strive for equality, both in political terms and economic one. And you can see how the whole world is reorganizing themselves. In 6 years' time, when you will enter your first stages of life, you will have, instead of a United States, or in addition to the United States, a free trade zone that will cover the whole continent of America. 800 million people, different cultures, different languages, and you will be very much like Europe, or very much like China, or very much like India, all the four who comprise today already 2/3 of humanity. And you can provide to yourself and your children a world without wars, a world without prejudices, because science and technology enables us to overcome distances and differences and colors and locations. When we were young, we have had just one window in our life, the window of our home, through which we could have seen the immediate vicinity and our neighbors. Today, each of us has another window, the window of the television. And every morning, we watch the entire world, its problems, its hopes, its dangers, its bloodshed. And in addition of being what we are as citizens of our nations, we are becoming more and more part of a global undertaking, a world that will see more peace and more just. You are beginning your way, and believe me, you have the right to do one thing: dream great, hope endlessly, never give up, never be impressed by hurdles, setbacks, or difficulties, because you are going to serve a great nation and a new future. All the best to you.